Hey guys, very good morning. My name is Mithilesh Singh, and today I'm going to talk about AWS Route 53. So, in this session, we understand first what it is, how does it work, what all benefits we can get, and how can we implement this in our running environment, or how can we migrate the DNS services. So, there are several parts which we are going to discuss. So, stay tuned and see till end. So the first, I have the lesson objective recorded here. So there are five. What is Route 53 and Route 53 functions, types of routing policies, Route 53 use case, and the practical or implementation part we will cover in our discussion. So the first thing, what is Route 53? So before going in description or detail of the Route 53, we have to understand why AWS has given name to Route 53. Okay. So as you know, the 53 is the port number of the DNS. Okay. And DNS, what is the DNS is? DNS is basically domain name system, which help to resolve the IP into name and name into the IP. Okay. So as a layman language, you can understand it's like a address book. So DNS service, what does it do? So take an example of your phone. Okay. So under your phone, in phone directory, you have multiple numbers saved in your phone with the name. Maybe it's your friend name or office colleague name, your relatives. So you have several numbers in your phone which is saved with a specific name. Okay, so why actually we do this? So name is easy to remember, but number is bit tough. If there is one or two number, you can easily remember and recall. But if there are like multiple numbers, hundreds or more than this number, right? Which you actually you are in touch with the person, right? You know the name, but you cannot recall the number, right? Whatever the number he has or they have given to you. Okay, so in such cases, what we do, we just save the number with the name, like Mike, Ramesh, Ram, okay, and we just save the number. Whenever we want to talk with them, what we do generally, we just call, just open the address book and click on the name, right? So in backend, what does your phone do? It actually call to the actual number, okay, and in the same way, when you talk about the websites or any name into the IT, right? Take an example, google.com, Facebook, Yahoo, Gmail. There are lots of websites which you access on daily basis, okay? So it's quite easy to remember. Google, anyone, everyone know, right? But the IP which is behind this name where actual server is running, you don't know the IP address, okay? And in the same way for other websites. So if there is only one website like google.com you are accessing, not anything else, or one or two more website, it's a bit possible that you can record the number and IP addresses and you can access the website with the IP. But in today's world, right, we are totally dependent on the internet, and there are lots of services actually correlated with the internet, okay, or linked with the internet, and we are accessing internet on very frequently for our day-to-day activities or even for home users. So the users who is not belong to IT, they also using the internet for different purposes, okay. So they, whenever they want to access like any government site or whatever, okay, so you want to book the gas, you want to order some food, okay, and you want to do some shopping like Amazon, Flipkart. So you generally what you do, guys, so you just go on the internet and on the browser you just type the name flipkart.com, okay, and then hit enter. What happened, it show the web page and then you can see the items and uh, request it, right? But when you click on the flipkart.com, so that is the name, actually that is the domain name, okay, and when you click on it, so what does happen, so the request from your system go to somewhere, which is the DNS server, okay, and then DNS server look your query what it is. So you type Google or Facebook or Flipkart, right? So it resolves the name into the IP address, and then you can reach to the actual site and it open the web page. Okay, so we'll give the proper demonstration and explain with the visualization, okay, so you can understand what it is, how does it actually work in real world. Okay, so before this I'll discuss what is Route 53 again. So as I said, 53 is basically port number of the DNS server. Okay, that is the reason AWS kept 53 as a reference, like this is the DNS service and the route. Okay, so when I say route, so what happens? So route is basically give the direction. Okay, in traditional DNS server, so what happened? So if you have created take an example, there are two websites in your organization. Okay, and the website A and website B. You have given this name to the end user. When end user search website web a.cloudxindia.com, hit it go to the DNS, and DNS give you the IP addresses. Okay, and when other user type, like take an example, web b.cloudxindia.com, it also go to the DNS, but DNS just keep the resolve the name into the IP and give you the IP, and so that you can connect to it. Okay, but DNS never identify whether target is healthy or not. Take an example, if web A or B is down, then DNS doesn't take the responsibility or give any acknowledgement or route your traffic to the healthy host, right? It simply give you the resolution. This is the IP, you can go and connect. Okay, when you reach to that particular website, you see the page cannot be displayed. It means the backend services where you are going is not healthy. Okay, so in Route 53, what does it do? It basically the DNS service in Amazon, it help you to check the health status of your target. Okay, whether target is healthy or not. If it is not healthy, then it will not route your traffic to that particular unhealthy host. It move your traffic or forward your query or give you the reference of the healthy host, not of the unhealthy host. So there are several use cases where AWS Route 53 or DNS service actually route the traffic based on the conditions. So I'll talk about all these use cases in detail in our next session. So let's see the definition of Route 53. So Route 53 is a web-based domain name system or service. Okay, when I say domain name system, it is a DNS in short. Okay, as I said, what DNS does, it resolves the name into IP or IP into name. Okay, so you can also say it cloud domain name system web services. So hope you understand and differentiate what is route and what is 53. Okay, so this is the collaboration of two things: one, name resolution, and also routing the traffic to the healthy host or nearest host or closest to you. The next one is Route 53 works same as your on premises or traditional DNS service, but there are few differences. What all the differences? So the first thing, Route 53 is highly available, scalable, and cost effective. So when I say highly available, so take an example. If you have DNS server in your on premises and there are two DNS server or 10 DNS server, in case all DNS server goes down due to some reason, what happened? So you will not be able to resolve the query because your DNS service is unavailable. Okay, and so in 10 DNS server case, right, it's not possible that all go all of a sudden at a time. But if you have one or two, then definitely there will be a risk, right? In case if it's not working, so you will not able to resolve your query. Second is it's scalable. So in case the demand increase, take an example, if there are 100 users using your Route 53, and then it in the back end maybe there are one DNS server. Okay, if the request increase from 100 to 5,000 or more than this or whatever it is, right? So it automatically scale a new server in backend, and also it is a cost effective. So when I say cost effective, so you need not to do the upfront payment, you need not to purchase a server over there and do the configuration. Okay, so you need not worry about the operating system or DNS server configuration part or server hardening, security, patching. Exactly, you need not to worry about it. Okay, so they configure everything in backend and provide you the services. Okay, and the services is based on the query. So take an example, if there is no query going from the client to the route 53, then the AWS doesn't charge for you. Okay, and the query response and whatever the query it take and keep the resolution basis of the query, it charge to you. Okay, the next one is before going in detail. So yeah, so before going in detail, we understand how DNS service work. Okay, and then we will go in detailed discussion of Route 53 again. So take an example. There is a server in your on-premises and a client system. So on the below bottom, you can see this is the client, and you have a web server on the top. The web server name URL name is dashboard.cloudxindia.com. Okay, and the website and the client is sitting in the same network, that is an internal network you can say, or your on-premises network. Okay, now client wants to access the dashboard.cloudxindia.com URL from its system. Okay, so as I said, if you want to establish connection or communication, or you want to exchange the data between two systems, you need the IP address. The name is the logical part, right? That I use for for my convenient, right? So that I can remember it easily. But when system communicate to any other system, like from this client to the website, when it go right, it use the IP address, not the name. Okay, so but as I said, we use the name whenever we are trying to access any server or we are trying to access any website. Okay, so what happened when client say I want to access dashboard.cloudxindia.com. Okay, so there are two things, right? So either you keep the IP address, like make an entry in your local system host file, right? You mentioned dashboard.cloudxindia.com, and on the top you can say the IP address of the CloudXindia dashboard. It's a 10.02.10. So you can keep a record in your local host file, and whenever your client trying to query dashboard.cloudxindia.com, it get the response from its local host file and connect to the web server. But that's not the ideal scenario in real world. Okay, so for that, what we do generally, so we deploy a DNS server. Okay, and in the DNS server we have to create a zone is basically there are three types of zone: primary, secondary, and stub zone. Okay, so in the maybe you have the primary or secondary zone based on the use cases. We can talk about zone later. So under the zone, you have to create a record. Okay. So when I say the record, there are several types of records. So this is the host record. When I say host record, so it's actually pointing to some of the server. Okay. So I have mentioned dashboard. So when you mention dashboard, so it comes under the cloudxindia.com. The FQDN of this particular name is dashboard dot cloudxindia.com, and the IP address I have mentioned 10.0.2.10. Okay, so this will be the primary or preferred DNS server of my system or any client, whatever client you have in your domain. Okay, so what happens? So client will query to the DNS server, but before going ahead. we have to understand there are two types of record. There are two way of creating record. One is the static and other one is the dynamic. So in the DNS, either you set the dynamic and the dynamic DNS means whenever there is a client join into the domain, if you are you have a domain environment like cd dot cloudxindia.com active directory services, and you have enabled dynamic update. So what happened whenever you join any system into the domain, so your DNS automatically update the record of that particular client. It create a DNS entry like XYZ, and then it add that particular client server's IP address in front of the that client server's name. Okay, and other is the static record. Static, when I say static, it means you have to create it manually on your DNS server. Okay, so now this record is static record, and what happened when client wants to access dashboard.cloudxindia.com. So since it does not have any information where is actually cloud dashboard.cloudxindia.com is located, okay, or configured, what is the IP address of it. So in general, what does it do? It reach out to the preferred DNS server, okay, and whatever the preferred DNS server you have set in your on premises, whatever you have, so it reach out to that particular DNS server. Okay, the moment it send query and it goes to this on premises DNS server one, it asks, do you know dashboard.cloudxindia.com? Then what happened at the moment you reach to this, it verify, do I have any zone like cloudxindia.com? So it reads the query from end side, like ending side, not from the starting. So it reads cloudxindia.com. Okay. So yes, I have a zone cloudxindia.com. What does it do? Then further it look, what is your query? I said I want to connect to a dashboard. So it's okay. It further verify whether I have a record dashboard or not. So it verify into the zone database and it found a record which is dashboard. So the fully qualified domain name of dashboard is dashboard.cloudxindia.com. So it find a IP address uh, which is assigned to this dashboard into the record. It's a 10.02.10. Okay, and so it give the response to the client, and the query what client sent to the DNS is known as the recursive query. Whenever there is a query from client to the DNS, that query is known as recursive always. Okay, so since DNS server has a record, it give the response to the client. Okay, hey, the IP address of dashboard.cloudxindia.com is 10.0.2.10, and based on the IP address, client will reach out to the web server, whatever you have in on premises. So this is one of the scenario within organization. And when DNS server give response to the client, okay, so again you connected to this DNS server which is in your on premises, and it has the record cloudxindia.com zone, and it give the resolution from its zone only. Okay, and when it responds, so that response is known as authoritative DNS response. Okay, so it's authoritative DNS response. The other scenario is, take an example, you want to connect to the google.com. So Google is not hosted in your premises. Google is external site. Okay, so what happened? So as a DNS server, where will you reach first? Definitely, my preferred DNS server is this, and I'll reach to this again, and the query will be a recursive query. Again, whenever a client make a query from system to DNS server, it's a preferred. The query will always a recursive query. Remember. Okay, so this moment I reach, the client reach to the DNS server and say, hi, I want to communicate with google.com. So what does this DNS server do? It verify whether there is any record exist with google.com or not. So it say Okay, I have a zone cloudxindia.com. I don't own google.com. So there are two types of response come. Okay, if this system knows who is the Google or where is the Google, it gives the response. Whether it is authoritative, if it is hosting zone, then it is authoritative. If it's getting response from some other DNS server, then that will be unauthoritative. If there is no response, take an example, it's not connecting to any other DNS server, then it look into the zone database and find there is no google.com. It give the response like there is no record exist. Okay, so at the end you will see the page cannot be displayed because your DNS server didn't give you the IP address of google.com, and your DNS server does not have the google.com record, and it's also not connecting with any other DNS server who can help to get the response. Okay, so in such cases, since there are lots of sites in the world hosted and we do not know the IP address of each, so what we generally do, we do the forwarding. Okay, so when I say the forwarding, where you can forward your query, so there are root server, root hint server available in the world. Okay, so when I say the root hint, it means that is the parent DNS, you can say, who can definitely give you the response. Okay, it has the information of all domain name in the world. So since its client is looking for Google and my DNS doesn't own the google.com, so what does it do? It forward your query to somewhere who can give you the response. Okay, so there are two options. Either you can directly forward your query to the root hint server, or you can forward your query to any of the devices like Cisco umbrella. Okay, so why should I use the Cisco umbrella? So there is a question because I have depicted the picture Cisco umbrella. I can use another DNS server over here and make it as a forwarder, which connect to root in server and give the response. But instead of putting DNS, I have mentioned Cisco umbrella. So why should I use the Cisco umbrella? As you know, DNS just give the resolution. Okay, so if you are looking for a flipkart.com, google.com or yahoo.com, it gives the response. It never verify whether the site what you are trying to access is malicious or not. Okay, so it never identify, it does not have. If you have your traditional DNS server over here, so it never identify, it doesn't know the site which you are trying to access is malicious or like it can give the bad impact. It never identify. Okay, so it simply give you the IP address when it get from the root hint and you can connect to it. And once you connect to it, since the site is malicious, right, so you will there is the infection on your system, and you will have your system is at risk. There are several sites are blocked in your organization. Okay, so Cisco umbrella is high intelligent device. What does it do? It do the DNS forwarding and also keeps the record of all websites that have been known to be malicious and prevents user from accessing the website. So what happened? So apart from Google, take an example. You are trying to open songs.pk, okay, .com. So the moment you reach to this, it say, okay, the PK is not good site. Okay, so there are some like lots of cookies and several things, right, which it puts on your system, and it can create problems. Okay, and your system will be at risk and your environment will be at risk. So what does it do? The moment you reach it, block the content. It will never pass your query or give you response to reach the next level. Okay, so that is the reason you can use the umbrella. Okay, this is the new configuration and every organization adopting and adopted. Okay, so there are several organizations where it is successfully implemented for security reasons. So I'll suggest go back and check your on-premises configuration, and you can suggest to use the Cisco umbrella. So the moment you reach to the Cisco umbrella, what does it do? Okay, so it look your query. So your query is the google.com. This DNS server say, hey, I don't know google.com, but I know a server who can help me to resolve your query. So it sent a query to the Cisco umbrella from this DNS, and the query is known as iterative query. So it forward the query. You send the query to your on-premises first DNS, your preferred, which is known as your primary DNS, and the query will be recursive from client to DNS, and then DNS server when forward this query to the next DNS server or Cisco umbrella. The query is actually it's a forwarding, and the query is known as iterative query. Remember this part. So what does it do? Cisco umbrella verify your query. Okay, google.com, I don't know, but I know someone who can help me to answer. So what does it do? I know the root hint server. So Cisco umbrella will reach out to the root hint server, and there are 13 root hint server in the world. Okay, so it reach out to, and it also forward the same query. Say, hey, I don't know, but I can get the response from someone. So it forward the query to the root hint, and the query will be again iterative. Okay. What does root hint say? Hey, I don't know the google.com. Your query is google.com, but I don't know. I know someone who can help you to the answer. So in the like DNS categorization, there are further like name or reserved, okay, like .com, .edu, .org. There are further segregation in the domain, okay, as you know, google.com or some organization, okay, org, educational site, .pk, .us, .uk. There are so many sites. So that is the subcategory or child domain of the root hint, you can say. So what does it do? It say, okay, your query is google.com. So it reads the first last portion, okay, dot com. Okay, so what does it do? Okay, your query is related to .com. I know a server which help you to give the response. What does it do? The root and server give the response or reference, not response, give the reference of the .com server and say you can reach out to the .com. .com will help you to give the answer. And basis of the suggestion, I'll reach out to the .com, and the query again will be a iterative query. Okay, and once I reach to the .com, it also check my query. It's a google.com. It says, okay, I don't have the exact IP of the google.com, the website, but I know someone who can help you to give the answer of the google.com. So it give the reference of the Google DNS server and say you can reach out to the Google DNS server. Then I'll go to connect to the Google DNS server, and query will again iterative query. Google DNS server say, yes, I know the server where this website is hosted, and it give the response to the Cisco umbrella of the IP address google.com. And then what Cisco umbrella does, it give this response or reference, the IP of google.com is whatever it is, it give response to your on-premises DNS server. The moment on-premises DNS server receive the response, it caches the query here, cache the reference, okay, so that in case if there is another user trying to access google.com, it will not follow this route. It directly give the IP of google.com, and client can reach it. So now once it caches, then it forward or give the response to the client. And now client, what does it do? Client now have the IP address of google.com. It can reach to the google.com directly, and google.com give the response. So this is how your DNS service work. Okay. Since the client did not get response from my on-premises, it's get response from the Cisco. Then the query response will known as non-authoritative query. So this is how your DNS service work, and hope you understand the whole concept. Okay. Now we'll talk bit about Route 53. So currently there was two cases. Okay, one, so client was querying dashboard.cloudxindia.com, which was hosted on local DNS server, and other one was the google.com, which is hosted outside my organization, and it followed the channel of Cisco forwarding route hint and blah blah blah. Okay, and then get the response. Okay, so in Route 53 explanation, what I can do is I can migrate my on-premises zone over Route 53 like cloudxindia.com. Okay, I'll not use my on-premises DNS server. I'll migrate to get the benefit of Route 53. Since this is the like brief intro, so I'll not go and cover in detail. I'll discuss in our next session. Okay. So the client, take an example, if there is a query web.cloudxindia.com, it reads to, so you can set a DNS server which only forward your query. Okay. So there will not be any record or zone available. It's simply, what does it do? It can help you to forward query to the Cisco umbrella. Cisco umbrella now forward your query to the Route 53, and then Route 53 give you the response of web.cloudxindia.com, because I have created a record over here and there is a service. Okay, and you can get the response from Route 53 here. So we'll see how can you migrate your DNS service from on-premises to Route 53, how can you create record, and how can you get the response and resolution from Route 53. We'll talk about in detail. So other part is Route 53 functions. So there are multiple functions. The first one is the DNS management. So DNS management, basically what does it do? It help you to resolve the name as we discussed, like cloudxindia.com if you have any record. So it resolve the name if you have created entry over there. Second is traffic management. It doesn't only resolve the name, it also give you the best path. Okay, and uh, the weightage, you can configure the weightage, you can configure the routing policy, it identify whether host is healthy or not. Okay, and it also monitor the availability monitoring, as I said, health check. So it monitor whether your backend server is healthy or not, and then basis of it, it give the response to the client. And the other part is domain registration. In the domain registration, what you can do, you can register your domain into the Route 53 as you use the godaddy.com or some other website hosting site, right? So you can also host your domain name into the Route 53. So this is all for today. Okay, and in my next session, I'll discuss completely about Route 53, the complete workflow, and we'll discuss about how to migrate it and how does Route 53 work on the. We'll discuss about the Route 53 policies, health check, and all. Okay, so guys, thanks for watching my video.